Imagine a monster who confessed to taking the lives of over 300 innocent children. A monster who walked among us undetected for years, leaving a trail of unimaginable devastation. This is the chilling reality of Pedro López, infamously known as the Monster of the Andes. Content warning. This story contains disturbing details and discusses themes of violence against children. Viewer discretion is advised. In the quiet, often overlooked corners of South America, a shadow once fell. Not a shadow cast by mountains or clouds, but by a man whose name would become synonymous with unimaginable horror. His story isn't just a grim statistic. It's a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life, and the devastating impact it leaves behind on communities and families. Pedro López's early life was a tapestry woven with hardship and abuse. Born in Colombia in 1948, he was one of 13 children, raised in extreme poverty. His mother, a sex worker, abandoned him at a young age, and he endured a childhood marked by neglect, violence, and sexual abuse. By the age of 8, he was living on the streets, surviving by petty theft. He spent years in and out of juvenile detention centers, and later adult prisons, where he was reportedly subjected to further abuse. This traumatic upbringing, while never an excuse for his monstrous acts, paints a vivid picture of a life steeped in brutality from its very beginning. Yet nothing, absolutely nothing, could foreshadow the sheer terror he would unleash upon the world. His hunting grounds stretched across the vast Andean regions of Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia, preying on the most vulnerable members of society, young, indigenous girls. For years, their disappearances were often tragically dismissed, attributed to runaway attempts, human trafficking, or simply the harsh, unforgiving realities of rural life, where official records were scarce and the concept of justice often felt incredibly distant. The world, it seemed, was simply not ready to believe that such profound evil could exist on such an unprecedented scale. The whispers began subtly. A girl from a remote village, gone without a trace. Then another, from a neighboring community, vanished into thin air. At first, local authorities, often severely under-resourced and completely overwhelmed by the sheer scope of their duties, struggled immensely to connect these seemingly isolated incidents. Each disappearance was, of course, a tragedy in its own right, but initially, they appeared unconnected. However, as the numbers of missing girls continued to grow, a cold, pervasive dread began to settle like a thick fog over the Andean foothills. Parents clutched their children tighter, their eyes constantly scanning every shadow, scrutinizing every stranger who passed by. Fear, a silent creeping poison, slowly but surely seeped into the very fabric of daily life. The pattern eventually became undeniable. Young girls, almost always from impoverished families, were vanishing without a trace. There was no ransom demand, no note left behind, just an agonizing void left in their wake, and the chilling, horrifying realization that something far more sinister and organized was happening. Communities, desperate and heartbroken, started their own tireless searches, combing through dense forests and navigating remote, treacherous trails, their hopes dwindling with each passing day. The official investigations, when they eventually happened, were often severely hampered by a multitude of challenges, including complex jurisdictional boundaries, significant language barriers, and a critical lack of funding and personnel. The sheer scale of the disappearances, spanning vast, often inaccessible territories, made it incredibly difficult to identify a single perpetrator or to discern a coherent pattern of behavior. It was as if the girls were simply swallowed by the majestic, unforgiving mountains themselves, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of their families' profound grief. It was in 1980 in Ecuador that the first significant crack appeared in his carefully constructed facade. A moment of pure, unexpected chance that would ultimately unravel a nightmare of unimaginable proportions. Lopez was caught attempting to abduct a young girl. He was arrested, not for the heinous murders he had committed, but for car theft, a seemingly minor offense compared to the true horrors he had already unleashed. During interrogation, a detective, driven by an unshakable gut feeling, a persistent, nagging sense that that there was far more to this man than initially met the eye. Pressed him relentlessly on the rumors of the missing girls. He asked about the whispers that had haunted the region for years, the unspoken fears that had gripped entire communities. And that's when the dam broke. Pedro López, with an unnerving, almost chilling calm that deeply unsettled even the most seasoned investigators, began to confess. He spoke in a flat, emotionless tone, detailing his horrific crimes with a horrifying, almost clinical precision. He led authorities to shallow graves, one after another, in the desolate, remote landscapes he knew so intimately. Over 50 bodies were exhumed in Ecuador alone, each discovery sending a fresh wave of agony through the families and providing a stark, undeniable confirmation of the unspeakable evil that had been lurking in their midst. But that, tragically, was just the beginning. His confessions spiraled, detailing atrocities committed across 3 distinct countries. He claimed over 300 victims, a number so staggering it defied belief. A figure that would forever earn him the chilling moniker, the Monster of the Andes. He recounted his methods, his movements, and his utterly chilling indifference to the countless lives he had so cruelly extinguished. It was a confession that shocked the entire world, revealing a predator of unprecedented scale and unimaginable cruelty. Lopez was eventually convicted in Ecuador for 110 murders, which was the maximum number they could definitively link him to with irrefutable physical evidence. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison, the maximum allowed under Ecuadorian law at the time for such horrific crimes. For many, this sentence felt like a cruel joke, a profound and deeply unsettling injustice for the hundreds of lives he had so brutally taken. But the horror, unbelievably, did not end there. Due to a combination of what was deemed good behavior and a legal loophole, Lopez was declared cured by some psychiatrists, and to the utter disbelief and outrage of many, he was released in 1998 after serving only 18 years. His release sent shockwaves of fear and profound outrage through the very communities he had so mercilessly terrorized. He was subsequently deported to Colombia, his home country, where he was briefly held for an old, outstanding murder charge. However, due to a lack of sufficient evidence and the passage of time, he was once again released. His whereabouts then became a chilling and unresolved mystery. The question lingered, a cold, heavy knot in the stomachs of countless families. How could such a monster walk free? How could so many innocent lives be taken, and justice feel so incomplete, so utterly broken? The families of his victims were left with deep, unhealing scars, forever haunted by the memory of their lost children and the agonizing knowledge that their tormentor had slipped through the cracks of the justice system, perhaps to disappear into the shadows once more, a chilling ghost of evil in the modern world. The story of Pedro López forces all of us to confront uncomfortable truths about the depths of human evil, the systemic failures within our institutions, and the often unequal value placed on certain lives, particularly those of the marginalized and vulnerable. It highlights the devastating consequences that arise when cries for help go unheard, when disappearances are tragically dismissed, and when justice systems are simply ill-equipped to handle such profound depravity. His case remains a haunting and enduring reminder of the fragility of innocence and the immense, enduring pain of those left behind. What are your thoughts on how justice was served, or perhaps not served, in this deeply disturbing case? How do societies effectively protect their most vulnerable members from such predators? And what crucial lessons can we truly learn from the tragic saga of Pedro López? Share your perspectives and insights in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into true crime compelling and thought-provoking, make sure to subscribe for more stories that explore the darker corners of history and human nature.